Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy New Year. Hope you're enjoying the best of Mike Richards and rawmikeRichards.com, or just, there's the thing right there. Just run that one. They won't notice. They'll, honestly, just, Rusty, just roll it. What?
I look at Van Riemsdyk as a $6 million player. I just don't see him being a $6 million player on the Maple Leafs, which is too bad.
I think Babcock would say if you're looking at Brownie, you know, he could get her done and skate up there and probably get 22, 22, 24. JVR, he's a good kid. His brother played Massachusetts, and he did well for Chicago, and then he bounced around, stuff like that. But he's got a good group now. I think we got a good group. Sorry to see Honey go. Honey was good. Honey could get her done, and I think Hainsey's going to be shit. I told Lou, don't get Hainsey. He's a great big steaming piece of poo. I think he's going to do a lousy job. I do.
See,
he doesn't fit our goop. I don't think he does.
I'm shocked, Mike. Yeah. I'm shocked that you would actually say this to us.
I like Dom though.
Dom's a great contract.
Morrissey comes in there and pretty good ping pong player. He's a good player, and it's a whole thing like that. What's his name? Roast beef. Russell saying, you know, if you go into the House of Lancaster and you don't got $1, then you're not having no fun. And that's how I see it.
That's it, eh?
Yeah. Hainsey's gonna be shit.
What? Look at, I'm telling you right now. So just in a second here. So George Chordoff, who just walked in, he's probably been a very busy guy considering how evil he's been in Designated Survivor.
That's true. He has been very evil.
So if you haven't, again, once you're watching on...
oh, look, he's pushing those 5 guys in front of him.
Okay, so we're going to show you a little bit of George's work, and then when we come back, get ready for George Chordoff in studio. Okay.
God bless all of you.
Run.
And these United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor to introduce Congressman Peter McLeish, our next Vice President. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Congressman McLeish, if you'll place your hand on the Bible and repeat after me. I, Peter Lewis McLeish.
I, Peter Lewis McLeish.
Do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
And that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I have a suspect in my line of sight. I need a team.
Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
Well, and there it is. Not that George, I think, necessarily has firearms and tries to kill the president. And for God's sakes, it's Kiefer Sutherland. I mean, I leave Kiefer alone. I mean, if you saw Lost Boys, you know he does some pretty good work. Stop shooting at him. And so we're thrilled to have George Chordoff in studio with us here today in the studio, rawmikeRichards.com.
Thank you for having me, Mike. Dave, nice to see you guys.
Now, people have to realize, too, for George, and we'll get to Goon and he did stunts in Kick-Ass. I loved Kick-Ass, so we're going to get that as well.
I actually started as a stuntman, and Kick-Ass is a great story.
It's great. I mean, we're going to talk about that in a second, but boy, I'll tell you, in my household, we loved Designated Survivor. We liked it from the very beginning, and I'm thinking, if it's me and I can get a role on one of these shows, I want to be the bad guy.
Yeah, right? Even though I didn't really say anything all year until closer to the end of the season, it was fun to just be that guy. Right away I pictured, the character that Carl Urban plays in the Bourne sequel. I was like, that's the guy. He just looks like that and does what he does, and it was fun. It was a good exercise in acting, because acting's usually, hit your mark and say a bunch of stuff, then move to the other mark and say a bunch more. But this was just like all marks, no words, and It's fun.
So there's Paul Smith, our good friend Smitty, because Elias was in yesterday, Tufexis, and now I got to say it. So Paul Smith, agent to the stars,
Agent to the stars.
just
Yep.
making me. You're not
It's true. It's true.
Are you? You're not a Montreal Canadian fan, are you?
You know what? I'm a hockey fan, period. And I just hope a Canadian
You
team
gotta like
wins.
a team, George, though, right? I mean,
When
growing
I was
up,
young-
no.
Growing up, yes. Growing up, Leafs. All Leafs.
No,
Really?
you're a Toronto boy, born and raised.
I was born in Niagara Falls, but I came here when I was 4 years old.
Okay.
So pretty much.
So where was high school for you?
High school for me was Sir Wilfrid Laurier out in Scarborough. Yeah.
Laurie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I grew up at
Yeah.
Morningside, Lawrence, and Kingston Road. My first job was at the McDonald's. That's still
It's still there. I drove by it today. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and I still make the trip out there from downtown where I live now to get Chicken Joy right next door.
Chicken Joy.
best.
That's been there since the 50s, I want to
The
say.
best, the
Okay,
best.
I got to ask you this, too, and I hope the answer is no. Oh, my God, George, I hope you're going to say no. You haven't stayed at the Havanap, have you?
Kingston Road's famous Havanap. There's the Roycroft. I've stayed at the Roycroft.
Oh.
I've stayed at the Super 8, but never the Havanap.
There's like the Alpine or the Avon or something, and you just look
Yeah.
and go, what? People are...
I just remember being a kid in the 80s and my mom driving home late at night and the islands would be speckled with,
Yes.
with people.
business people. Yeah, transactions.
Yeah.
Nice way of saying
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah. Well, I try to be as nice as I can.
Well, and here's the thing. So I talked to Smitty and I said, we're just getting started. We, it's going to be tougher to get sort of Hollywood people in there. He goes, do you watch Designated Survivor? I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I do. He goes, do you want to have, George Boulet plays this guy? I go, oh, he's a bad guy? He goes, yeah. And of course, he also was in Goon. I go, I go, well, how are we going to get him in here? He goes, well, they film. Is it in Downsview? Where do you film this?
It's in Downsview. You'd be amazed how much of what you see on the screen isn't actually there. They do a really good job at turning Toronto into Washington. There was a time where, American shows would come to our town and film, and you could tell, oh, that's the Eaton Center, that's University
Exactly.
Correct,
Avenue,
yeah.
that's this,
Yes.
that's that. But they do such an incredible job on Designated Survivor of completely fooling us. So many people are like, they actually shoot that here? Like, people think it shoots.
Well,
in
I
Washington.
didn't know until I was told. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
known. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have known. And you really got to look hard, even though I thought there was one chase scene, sort of a chase scene. And I'm like, is that Kingston Road and Old Kingston Road? I couldn't tell, but you start looking for signs and stuff. I'm like, why
Like
am I
that little
wasting? What kind of loser am I? Why am I even bothering with when all this stuff is going on? And there's Wells running around, and then and Kiefer Sutherland. So let's talk about Kiefer Sutherland, another Canadian. And
Yes.
I just like his work. 24. I mean, I saw every second of that.
Yeah,
but,
I haven't seen all of it, but he's the best. And I didn't even get to meet him on set, to be honest with you, because our scenes were always apart.
Yeah, because you probably weren't really shooting at him.
That's right. Oh yeah, no, I was shooting at a giant white piece of paper. But the word on the street is he's the gold standard. Like he
That's
is.
great.
He's
And
the
that's-
gold standard. Like he shows up ready. He's happy. He's easy. He's driving the show, and he cares about it so much. He's just the consummate professional.
Isn't he one of the producers or executive
He is.
producers?
He is.
He
Yeah.
pulls off the presidential look too. I don't know. He almost looks a little bit smaller,
Yeah.
and the glasses kind of
Yeah.
give him that
Yeah.
look where you sit there and you go, he's more believable than what they actually have in the White House right now.
Right, right.
So-
Yeah. A lot of people, like I say, this show's not about. It's called Designated Survivor, and it spans so many important flashpoint topics in the States, from healthcare to education to arts funding to terrorism to international terrorism. But really, to me, the show is about the perfect president.
Yeah.
He's the perfect president. And the way Kiefer plays him is so amazing because he always has a balance between his head and his heart. And sometimes the head takes over and sometimes the heart takes over, but he always uses both. And when do we ever see leaders do that?
And again, you bring up another point about the qualities that he's able to have, because it's not Jack Bauer.
No, at all.
And so are there times where I want to see, like, a terrorist coming and goes, you come here, goddammit, put your hand in the wire and put your hand in the bathtub. No, Jack, you can't do that. Shut up, talk. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that's what I want to see. But you know what? He's not that. And he's just, as Dave said, there's a little bit of a frailty to it. But as you said, the intellectual side, because they refer to him as not a politician in the show,
Yeah.
because he was not a voted-in politician. He was someone that tried to fix housing problems and so on. I thought, there's a lot of people who probably watch that show and go, oh, maybe we should blow up. Maybe we should blow up the White House, start all over again, and find Kiefer Sutherland.
You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed how many people they're like, yeah, you got to blow it up, you got to. And I was like, guys, there's nothing to celebrate here. I mean, I know people are angry out there, but just keep it to yourself.
Yeah, keep it to yourself. Okay, here's something that's not being kept to themselves. The real Tonelli, as he goes by, he's a member of two armies, the Richards Army and the Kiss Army. This we know.
That's true. Yep.
Yes.
Nice.
He says, and this is a question
Okay.
for George, more of a statement. We all used to hang out there at Wimpy's. Wimpy's Diner about 15 years back. A buddy owned it. Pretty sure George worked there for a bit as a cook. He was a stuntman back then. Tell him I said hello and best of luck going forward.
Oh, thank you so much at Real Tonelli.
Yeah.
Yes, Wimpy's is a real thing. A very dear friend of mine, his father started the franchise.
He started it?
His father started it. Yeah.
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
great
his
story.
name is Chris Sturjovsky, and so his son George, we met through Macedonian circles, I like to call them.
Yeah, yeah.
Macedonian,
Yeah,
very
I'm
nice.
half
I'm Massey.
Macedonian, half Bulgarian.
So I can say kokose.
Dobar, ti kako si?
See, look at that.
Beautiful.
Best friends.
The other stuff I know.
I'll
The other
just
stuff I
wait.
know, I'm going to get in trouble for. My brother-in-law is going to go. Did you call him a Zospin? Do you ever hear that word?
Zospin.
Zospin, yeah,
Of
Zospin.
course.
Sleepyhead. Yeah, there you go. We're talking Macedonian.
That's right.
Remember, we are friends of Macedonia.
The slušate.
There
That means listen. Yeah, so I started working at Wimpy's, and I was young. I was like 18 or 19. You know, I was booting around in this Mustang GT with my hair slicked back. Total loser.
No. You know what? I did find one of those pictures. Now, I didn't put it on there. But I'm like, the long hair, I'm going,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
that looks,
the
no.
ponytail.
Yeah, that looked good. I like that. I like that look.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's I like the long hair.
It was good.
Yeah, it works on you, on me.
Thank you. Look how great this guy is, man. So as the Macedonians are going, ask him. I go, okay. Do you make a lot of potty?
Did I make a lot of money?
Yeah.
You know what? For the time, it was a great job because they did pay me well, and I got to eat, and I got to come in late, and I got to close the place down, and so yeah, they paid me well. I can't give out numbers.
No, of course not. That wouldn't be right. Now, the one thing that people are always curious about is the steps it takes to get to where you are, because you're
Correct.
still going, and this is a career that's still moving forward.
Yeah.
So if you go back to stunt work, and again, if you haven't seen Kick-Ass, and that's why I think people don't. You know, when you see
Kick-Ass is a funny story.
that's a funny story.
It's a funny
For
story.
people who haven't seen it, just explain what it is.
Kick-Ass is a movie about a not-so-superhero, about an ordinary guy who takes it upon himself to stop crime wherever he can. But I wasn't actually in the movie. I was credited because as a stunt performer, I was hired on that show by a good friend of mine named Brad Allen from the Jackie Chan stunt team. And he asked me to come out and do some fight stuff, which is kind of the stunts that I did. I wasn't like a high fall, fire burn, get hit by a streetcar kind
Right.
of guy. I did mostly martial arts stuff, wire work.
So do you know martial arts?
I do.
So what did you study? What was your?
I studied Filipino martial arts under a man named Guru Jun de Leon, who is, I would say, the best in North America.
So we
Yeah.
know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is because we've seen that. So what is the
Filipino
trait?
martial arts, the traditional name is Arnis or Kali. Some people also call it Eskrima, which basically means bladed weapons. During the times when the Spaniards were colonizing the Philippines, they had outlawed this sword fighting because they were getting hacked to pieces. And so, in an effort to maintain their style and their martial art, the Filipinos hit it with sticks.
You know what? I think I saw an example of that. I watch Anthony Bourdain, and he went to the Philippines. He
Yeah.
went in there, and I saw, what are these guys doing these moves? They said if they didn't, because they were getting so overrun by the Spanish at the time, they developed this art. So now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, totally. So it's stick fighting. It's the only martial art that starts with weapons and ends with empty hands. Like if you go to a traditional karate school, you're going to learn all your blocks, kicks,
Yeah.
punches for years.
Taekwondo is more of the
then-
legs and
yeah,
that.
And
yeah.
then they'll give you a sword or a stick or a bow staff or nunchucks or something. But in Filipino martial arts, day one, it's like you have to have 2 sticks and a knife.
yeah.
You know, knife fighting is a big part of it, and Filipino style has actually pervaded a lot of film, which a lot of people might not be aware of. There's a big coordinator in the States named Jeff Amata, and he spawned, a legion of amazing Filipino martial artists and martial artists in general. And now they have a team called 1187, which has done the 300 films and like the Bourne films, and they do the X-Men films and Logan. And a lot of those guys are Filipino martial artists.
Any Steven Seagal films where Steven Seagal comes and goes, you're not so fucking tough. And then all of a sudden, gung, gung, gung,
I'll show you tough.
But now it's like this.
Yeah.
You're not so tough. Come back here.
My buddy and I were joking the other day that every new Steven Seagal movie poster is him with yellow shooting glasses and an assault rifle pointing at the ceiling, and that in another 10 years the gun will be pointing at the floor, but it'll still be the same
He
poster.
makes a movie every week.
Right?
Yeah.
I said that to someone. I was like, I loved Van Damme and Steven Seagal growing
Yes,
up. They were my
yes.
favorite.
Yes.
Like, if
Yeah.
it wasn't for Van Damme, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. Let's be serious.
Yeah, okay,
I
yeah.
loved them as a kid.
Now, can
know?
you do the splits, like when he's in the kitchen, and can you do that?
I can almost do this.
You-
When I was in high school, I used to have a Van Damme cardboard cutout in my room, life size.
wow.
And I'd do the splits in front of the couch for 5 minutes until my legs were shaking, and then I'd go throw kicks at his face. Yeah. But I always used to say, like, the movies I remember Seagal and Van Damme for, at that point, there was like 6 or 7 movies, and it was like, wow, these guys are huge. They've probably made 60 movies
Oh, yeah.
since
Oh, yeah.
then
Yeah.
that no one has
Yeah.
seen.
Seagal made 60 movies last week.
Yeah.
Like he did one. I think it was like over. I was saying like it was like Hungary or Bulgaria or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
his
he
favorite.
was supposed to be fighting Martian vampires or with the sword.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, Steven, I call him going, we're friends. Enough. Okay, the vampire. You're on Mars, and
Right.
you're wearing the big leather coat. The hair's really black. Nothing doesn't
Yeah,
look good.
right? It looks like someone just took a piece of paper and
Yes.
sprayed it on.
But he doesn't need to do that. Now, getting to the actual mixed martial art, Dave, you did, what was your discipline?
Just Taekwondo. Yeah.
Taekwondo.
Taekwondo's nice.
The
Yeah.
split part is where it's all legs, it's all flexibility. Really helped out with a lot of other sports, and you probably find that with everything else.
Yeah, totally. Soccer, I think.
There you
I
go.
think certain sports require a lot of agility.
Mm-hmm.
Soccer and basketball, I think, are the two sports where if you're a martial artist, especially a Taekwondo guy, you go out onto a soccer field, you'll never get knocked over, tripped,
Yep.
anything. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Change directions quickly.
So, does MMA interest you at all?
The way I was sort of trained in a traditional way, I had to basically, like the old kung fu movies where you kneel on the steps and it rains and it pours and they put out a bowl of rice and all the people who take some rice get kicked out and it's left down to the last guy who suffers the most. Like, I had to go through an arduous process to get into the school that I went to because at the time my guru was very selective. He wouldn't just take anyone with money. It wasn't like Black Belt World. You know what I mean? It was quiet. It was underground.
Where basically they sit in the front door and they welcome everybody in.
That's it.
as
Sign
long as
here.
you-
Yeah, buy this, buy that, buy this. Go stand in line. Ours was more. I actually had to go watch a couple of classes, and then I had to bring my mom to the class, and he made me ask my mother in front of him if I was allowed to participate in that class. It was really strict. And so part of getting in was you're not joining this club unless you're going to do minimum 2 years, 2 to 4 times a week, because I'm not here to waste my time or yours. And so it was always a really serious, really disciplined thing.
How old are you at this point? Well, how old are you?
I'm at this point I'm 15. Yeah. And I was just like, whoa, okay. I have to listen. I have to, my father passed away very young. My mom worked lots of jobs constantly, trying to keep a roof over our heads. And so this man was all of a sudden like he had me snapped. Like, I listened to him, and thankfully he's a great man and a great martial artist.
Sure.
So I got lucky that I didn't walk into Black Belt World.
Well, that's a massive influence. What this tells me is that and it's so difficult when you hear stories of guys who lose their father. We both still have our dads. My dad was and still a great coach. So we're lucky because we had that influence. We don't know what that's like. If that were taken away from me, this is what I talk about sports and coaches and teachers. you hope at some point in your life that you are lucky enough that you meet somebody that helps mold you from a boy into a man. It doesn't happen for everyone. I tell people that's why team sports, I think, sometimes very important. You don't always get lucky with the coaches that you have. But I would also say to you, I know you talked about lucky, but you also at 15 made a really serious decision to have discipline.
Yeah.
And without a dad sometimes, that's not easy to do. It's easy to get away from you. But obviously your mom must have been a huge influence on your life as well.
Yeah, totally. She's the biggest influence in my life. She's so strong. Like the things she went through without a tear. You know, always smiling, always happy, always trying to uplift the situation. Always, constantly. And so for her, the way that's, trickled down into my blood is like, I could walk outside right now, and if I saw the windshield on my car smashed and keyed up, I'd just be like, meh. Someone else somewhere else has got it way worse. And that's one thing my mom always used to, my mom's really funny. She's got good one-liners, and sometimes, you'd see someone with a difficult life crossing the street, and my mom would be like, you think you got problems.
Yeah.
But there's something in the
Yes,
joke.
of course there is.
Yeah.
Of course
There's
is.
something in the joke. The way she says it is like, laugh now, tomorrow that's you, if you're not smart.
And I know a lot of the, the Macedonian families that I'm close with. A lot of them appreciate so much what they have here because back in Macedonia, and depending,
It's third world.
You're talking mountains, you're talking goats,
Mountains and goats.
and then depending on the part of whether the other countries recognize, if they recognize Macedonia. You know the Greek people, Sorry, Dave, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. or more the Yugoslavian side. They come over in the 50s. They go to the Danforth. And so you have the family I know is Bozanis, a name changed. Actually, is Bujanin. Then you have Stavros and Vitov and that whole family. And they all helped each other. They weren't the families you see now. John Jr. did not, and his father, who just passed away a little while ago, they weren't born millionaires. They had to make it
not at
themselves.
all.
They trusted each other, and there's this framework that they built. But they have that mentality of don't look yourself in the mirror too long because the guy outside, you're not that far away from him.
Yeah, Steve Stavros is an incredible, a great example because he's a guy who started selling fruits on the Danforth off of a skid that he found in an alleyway, and when it was time for Steve to leave us, he was the owner of the Raptors and the Leafs and Nob Hill Farms.
And Nob Hill
He
Farm.
built our city.
Yes.
There's another Macedonian named Mike Illich, who Mike
Yes,
Illich is
yes.
big in hockey. For hockey fans, they would really know who Mike Illich is. He's from the same village as my mom.
Is that there is a picture that I've seen that is a soccer team from the Danforth, and in the 50s.
They must be
in the
great.
50s. You should see the names though in it.
Yeah.
As they were young when they came over, and none of them knew the language. That's the other thing too. None of them knew the language. A lot of them went to the restaurant and food sort of side of things, but what they've made of themselves. It's a great story, and I'm going to go from that warm story to Goon. It's a tough transition that I'm attempting here. The segue, not as smooth, Dave, as I would have liked. But, of course, even though it's a Macedonian person, more Russian in this one with a brother. And I will tell you, if you haven't seen the movie or you don't appreciate the way that certain people in a hockey locker room would talk about someone's mom, this clip is not for you.
Fucking helmet! Starting goalie Michael Belcher. Call him Belchy. He's from Regina.
Regina?
He drinks a lot of hand sanitizer. What's so fucking funny, giggly bits?
We have your mama right here.
There she is.
Look at this beautiful smile. There she is. Say hello.
Oh, it's called fuck your mom.
Now, does that guy look like a killer?
Just like a bill chick.
Fucking Chernobyl motherfucker.
Yo, yeah. There's something that's not for Mother's Day, and by the way, Happy Mother's Day the other day. That's not the. But you
Yes.
know what? That must have been a lot of fun. Can
Yeah.
you skate? Like, are you?
Yeah, I could skate. I could skate. I like to consider myself an athlete, but I'm nowhere near a pro hockey player. So I can, I can get on the ice and skate and shoot and all that stuff, enough to make a movie. They trained us also, especially a lot on the second one. But that scene, the helmet scene, is really funny because when I got Goon, at that point in my acting career, I was like trying to be really professional. I said, I don't care if it's a student film or Steven Spielberg. I'm not interested who's writing, producing, directing. I just want to do my best. And I'm going to treat every job the same. So I read my scenes. I did this audition. I show up in Winnipeg where we shot it.
Yeah, God's
And-
country.
Yeah. Portage La Prairie
There
is
you
the
go,
town.
there you go.
Hey, his brother. To tell the story, you got to tell the story.
I'll tell him later.
No, got to tell him now. Because people watching know.
Okay, so my brother was in that movie as well, but he was in the penalty box at the time. I think
Okay.
he was the timekeeper in that movie. I think you guys shot in Portage and I think Selkirk, Manitoba too, right? Was it Selkirk?
I'm not sure. There might
Yeah.
have been scenes that I
Yeah.
wasn't in that they shot.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, but we're not talking about the Gilmore stuff, right?
No.
But this scene, I walked in with this sort of not knowing who was there or what was going on. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Jay Baruchel. Oh my God, that's Sean William Scott. Oh my God, this, like, whoa, hold on a second. And that was the first scene we shot. That was like day one.
That was the first shoot?
Day
Oh, my
one.
God, that's hilarious.
And I was just standing there with Sean, and it was great. It was a bit of a baptism by fire thing. A lot of improv in that movie, which was great. I really like that. Sometimes I don't like being restricted.
Okay, so talk about that, because a lot of people, we don't understand what you have to do. We assume there's a lot of memorization. We assume these pages of lines you're trying to do it. And then someone like yourself comes in and said, yeah, but the director let us improv a little bit. How do they set that up? They say, here's what's going on here. Do you have to hit some lines and then go off? How does that work?
Yeah, sometimes it could be like, say this and then go wild a bit. And sometimes it'll be stick to the script, do it once, twice. Okay, we got that. Now do whatever you want. Give me something different. Have fun.
So the helmet scene, improv or some stuff?
Helmet scene, we, again, say these two lines and then go off
Take
a
off
bit.
with it.
Take off with it.
So you got to come up,
Yeah.
especially in a scene like that, you're like, you know, as a Russian person, you might be saying something like this. I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
a fun thing to do. I
Yeah,
think.
no, it was great, and the audition sort of went that way too, where it was done. My callback was done over Skype, and I didn't have a physical webcam, so I had to empty my room, take my iMac, put it on like 4 feet of books, so that I could Skype this audition with the whole room around me, and yeah, that's all it was. He didn't even want to hear the lines. He was just like, insult my mother. Go for it. Let me hear what you got.
Now, did you have to borrow a little of the accent? Because if someone who's part Bulgarian or whatever, I mean, can you read Cyrillic? Can you read it?
It's tough. I wouldn't say I can.
But it's a little bit in that culture. So to imitate that accent is not that far away for you to do that.
No, the accents are not far away, but they're not exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah, so it makes it easy. And because I speak Bulgarian and Macedonian, and I went to public school, which is the best thing in the world because I grew up with kids from everywhere, and I got to try food from everywhere, and I got to hear accents from everywhere and sleep at kids' houses that
Correct,
were from
yep.
yeah, it was amazing. So accents for me are something I appreciate. So I really, when I hear an accent, I'm like, excuse me, Mike. I'll be listening. I got to hear it. Yeah.
Good for you. What a very nice. Like, look, it's funny. You meet people and you see what they do for a living. We've not met beforehand. I'm thinking, I hope we hang out. I hope you come to I hope you come to parties with me. I mean, it's just you get to meet these people. Like, yeah, but the other thing is, of those people that you met on movies, everyone doesn't become friends. We often think that
it's rare.
You come across and they were in all these scenes. Sometimes, as you said, you don't even saw Kiefer Sutherland because you weren't in the same scene at the same time.
Yeah.
Who did you get to meet on that? Did Liev Schreiber? Did you get to meet him?
On Goon, yeah, I got to spend a lot of time with Liev. Especially we were in Winnipeg, and so there's not a hell of a lot going on.
Dave.
Sorry, Dave.
That's
And so after work, we were doing night shoots on that movie. So after work, we would all have beer and bacon and eggs for breakfast, as it were, because it was 8 a.m. And then we'd sleep. And on the weekends, we were already on this night shift thing. So Liev and I had some very interesting times together. Yeah.
He looks awesome. He looks like, Ray Donovan, we talk about. I love Ray Donovan. That's an awesome show. And,
yeah, it's great.
And so, Jay, do you get to meet Jay at all?
Jay's my best friend. Like,
he's amazing.
Yeah, we met on the first Goon, and it was almost like we were finishing each other's sentences. Like, we just got along so well. We have so much in common from our our relationships with our mothers and our upbringings and the types of neighborhoods we grew up in. And he's also embraces everything around him. And so we have so much in common. We hit it off instantly. Yeah, we talk daily.
Now, what's next for you? I mean, you've everything that you've done so far that we have shown. There's got to be casting directors, people who are putting projects together, going, this guy we can work with.
Yeah, that's what I hope the work speaks for itself.
It better.
Which is why I don't have any social media and stuff. A lot of people think it's like really strange that I don't have social media being an actor, but you know, for me, I just want it to be like it was when I grew up. You know, the work speaks for itself, and I'm not reaching out constantly every time I'm sitting on the toilet begging people to watch Designated Survivor. I'm thrilled that they love it without me having to do that, you know, and they get to enjoy the show, and people see me in Starbucks and they're like, you just see their head kind of turning sideways. They don't know what to say.
So have you guys shot season 2 already? Because I know you guys are renewed for the fall. So is that already underway, or is that finished already?
Season 2 is going to start very, very soon. They're taking a hiatus and then going to go back at it. The show was crazy. I've never worked on a busier show.
Really?
Yeah, it was like I've worked on big shows like Chronicles of Riddick, you know, $180 million shows and stuff. But this show was just busy. 3 units, 2 units going constantly around the clock.
So that's
many
expensive.
moving parts.
So it's expensive to do this stuff.
Yeah. And it's an ABC show, and there was just so much going on that we're only 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the airing schedule.
Oh wow.
So
it's a
the
race.
episode that aired last night was only written like 5 weeks ago and shot 3 weeks ago.
So the writers just must be losing their minds trying to make sure that they keep ahead.
It's a big team, and you know, it's easy to sort of like, oh, we map out a whole season and then go for it. But part of the great thing about this show is that they're trying to keep it relevant at the same time. So that involves a bit of in the moment writing. You can't sort of go too far ahead, you know, because if what you wrote last year for episode 10 doesn't work in the moment anymore, you know, and that's what's great about the show. It feels like it's now. It feels like he's the president now.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure like 50 million people watch this show across the world.
Well, it's got to be huge.
So I'm sure he's more of a president to them than
the president.
Yeah.
The current.
See, he still can't even say. You might be one of the most grounded individuals. I mean, it's just rare that if it's me, I mean, there's a lot of humility. There's a lot of balance to your life. I would be disgusting. I think I'd be like Rob Lowe, and the girls would be coming over, and the cameras would be already set up. Like, what's that? Don't worry about it. By the way, Russell, make sure you get everything. And don't lose the light. You know, and you have none of these qualities. You're like the most awesome guy. It's unbelievable.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. I was always taught to be humble. You know, one thing my father told my brother, which my brother told me, was the humble head never gets cut by the sword. And again, my martial arts instructor, Guru Jun, humble was everything. He'd never wanted us to fight. He wanted us to be artists, perfect, you know, picture perfect all the time. And we always trained in regular clothing, and, you know, I never wore stuff with logos on it and patterns, and it just became a thing where you just always that's a cute little logo.
I don't profess to do that stuff either. I think it's way
it's not to say I haven't been caught in a t-shirt with something on it, but I just try to be non-invasive to the rest of the world as much as I possibly can. That way I can watch and I can learn and I can absorb. If I'm busy talking and shining, then I'm not really absorbing what's around me. That's my
Are you listening, Russell? Yeah. After you shirtless in the patio bar last night, I was disgusted by that whole thing. It really was too much. George,
sorry I missed it.
Thank you so much for coming. I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been to meet you, and
you too.
And people are like, what was all the Macedonian talk? I didn't know. I see, and that's the thing about the Macedonians. You see the last name, and because of where they've come from, a lot of times it's changed. Like, it may not, like, do you know what it was before it was?
It was always Chortov.
It was.
It was.
Okay, that's interesting.
Now, my mom's last name was Anevska. That's the feminine affectation. It would be Anevsky.
Right.
So that was my mother's maiden name.
Because there's skis, and then of course, if it was Greekified, I think I could say that. You know, then you like I would think Stamkos was maybe not that before. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, but a lot of times they've changed those names.
Stamkos could have been changed. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know Steve Stamkos.
Yeah, Steven, if you come on the show. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
I'm a fan, Steven.
Yes.
And I'm very proud of you. And a lot of my friends, you can ask them. I'm always like, that guy's Macedonian, best in the league. You're lucky he broke his leg. He's the best in the league. Yeah, his also is a name to me that sort of rings close to the border. There's a lot of the border communities that are mixed Macedonian and Greek, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
his name to me sounds like one of those names.
See, I know Greek stuff too. You know.
Oh,
because
you know, yeah,
he has
yeah.
a very beautiful sister-in-law. Just so you know.
Yeah. By the way, my wife
Yes.
was texting with us saying that Vicky would be very interested in George.
Yeah, I don't want to hear this talk.
Holy moly!
What? Right in front of me?
my wife's twin sister.
Well, let's all go out for dinner sometime.
Yeah, I was gonna-
You know, I'm not that big on you now.
Jesus, I go up and down
Yeah,
so
I was
fast
gonna say
on the
it.
scale of Richards.
That really flipped it at the scale.
The Richards scale.
The scale of Richard.
Best friends. Yep.
Is that going to become a thing now on the show?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna send you a scale. And we'll put it in the thing here. Justice in your window.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
George Chordoff, unbelievable to have you in studio today. Congratulations on all the successes, and we
Thank you.
certainly hope to see more of them.
Yeah.
And hope to see more of you. And again, congratulations on a tremendous show. Designated Survivor, by the way. Don't ruin it for people. The finale was last night, so if you haven't seen it, don't tell people.
That's right. Keep it quiet.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Brat. Thanks,
Brat.
Brat.
Yeah.
Brat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Everything.
Hey, I watched the show too.
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's true. Everything about it.
So
John Travolta, the best
Yeah.
Bob Shapiro ever.
Let me just tell you something, OJ. I'll take a look at this, and I will do the press conference. We'll do it at 4 o'clock, and of course, I will handle that whilst you're in jail. So if just listen to me and
see Eric McMorrow going, I can't take that seriously.
I'll tell you something, Macramella, shut the fuck up, okay? That's how that works. I don't need to hear from you and your little TSN show. I'm John Travolta. I'm also Robert Shapiro, which obviously he talked like this. Hey, Mr. Cotter.
I relate to the Don Whitman, Ben Johnson call higher than that. And it's all and
The
I
Ben
don't-
Johnson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is, but I think I can pinpoint it. But it's the 979 at the end. We'll talk about that shortly. Here's John Van Beesbrook.
Yes, as we go to the magic of Skype, and I believe we have him now joining rawmikeRichards.com. We talk to John Van Beesbrook. Beezer, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Guys, good to be with you.
Now, are you calling us from Muskegon?
I'm calling you from the lovely Muskegon, Michigan.
Ah, fantastic.
And it is kind of, I'll tell you what, people, when you start talking about Michigan, I don't know, John, if there's a more diverse state that I've ever been to, going from, sort of the bottom of it, or people assume, they just always associate Detroit, which I think also people still, unless you've been there, kind of are just watching a lot of TV or movies. But from that all the way up to Traverse City, Petoskey, all the way up to Sault Ste. Marie, my God, there is so much to see in Michigan that I think people really don't know what they're talking about when they talk about that state.
Yeah, Michigan is a great state, and on the west side where we live, plentiful in sand because there's 300 miles of beach and 300-foot dunes. And it sounds like I'm giving an ad for the state of Michigan called Pure Michigan, but Sleeping Bear Dunes is one of the most unusual, beautiful places. If your listeners have a chance to visit Sleeping Bear Dunes, you'd have to walk a mile through sand to get to the beach. You think you're in the Gobi Desert. So pretty fun place and very refreshing this time of year.
Color of the water is amazing, like it really is, really interesting. And for those, how far would you be from South Bend? Not that far, right?
No, from Muskegon to Notre Dame, which is the mark of South Bend, is about an hour and 15 minutes.
And I also have to think, too, obviously you being from, Detroit originally, that when we start talking about these kinds of areas, Grand Rapids, for Canadians who haven't, we kind of hear these names, just how hockey intensive is it? How big is hockey in the areas that we're talking about?
Oh, it's a hockey state. It's Detroit's just not hockey town. Hockey has been a staple in the state for as long as I've known it. But back in the 50s, and we want to talk about Ted Lindsay and Gordie Howe, but really up in the Sioux, Detroit Red Wings used to take their team up to Sault Ste. Marie and play at the old Puller Arena, which built in 1925 or something like that, and all the way over to Muskegon, which was a staple in the I. This building here in Muskegon started in 1960, and it used to be in a circuit with Flint and Saginaw and Kalamazoo, and that circuit of the old IHL died out when the AHL really became the minor leagues, the AHL for the NHL, but what a history of hockey in the state of Michigan, where actually grinders used to learn how to grind.
Yeah, certainly. We're on the line with John Van Beesbroek joining us, former Vezina Trophy winner, multi-time All-Star. He also is the 8th goaltender in NHL history to play in 800 games, which is truly remarkable, John. What I want to talk to you about today mainly is kind of the expansion process. Now, when I'm doing my research, there's 2 significant names in NHL history that comes up in expansion draft picks. It's yourself and Billy Smith as the 2 greatest picks ever by an expansion team. I have to ask you, back in 1993, you're a member of the Canucks. You didn't play for the Canucks. You were shipped over before that expansion process. You get picked up by the Florida Panthers. What's going through your mind at that time, considering the great career you had with the Rangers and so forth, and now you're picked up by the South Florida team?
Right. The 2 teams that were coming into the league at that time were Anaheim and Florida. So those 2 destinations were pretty good for a hockey player.
Yeah.
But the unusual part to it is more about the Florida Panthers, where I ended up. And the unusual part was, could hockey exist down there? It was always warm. Would the ice melt? Was some of the simple questions. But more than that was, can you create an identity? And I think that what you see with Vegas going on is everybody wondering what their identity is going to be. And I think that, as you pointed out with Billy Smith, Bill Torrey was the architect of the Islanders. He was also the architect of the Florida Panthers, and I think he knew a little bit about building an identity. Bob Clark, longtime Philadelphia Flyers, was the general manager. Most people don't know that at the time, who was another good architect at building teams. And I think that that tandem wanted to build an identity of older veteran players who could win, and that's what they built. And we had some success, but it starts in goal, and with Billy Smith, myself, and now everybody's talking about Marc-Andre Fleury, which they should. I think that that's a good place to start with your identity. I had no idea then. Former coach, now gone on to be with the Lord, Roger Nielsen, was fantastic at that, is knitting guys together and creating a system which would work. So, there are a lot of intangibles, a lot of recipes out there, and we're all curious about how the Golden Knights will make that work.
Well, John, as you bring up, that balance between, what they're doing now and moving assets. We see Mathot now is gone, something coming back the other way. That balance between, trying to build for the future and gain the draft picks and so on. But there's something else that goes on, and obviously you're with Muskegon, you're as the general manager, you're trying to do the same thing, which is build what I think people call the culture of winning, and this is certainly what I call. It takes time to build a resume that when you step on the ice, the other team sees the uniform coming, and certainly playing in the show as many games as you did, you know what those uniforms look like. You saw the weight of that symbol coming onto the ice, and to me, that was a culture of winning. When you're building a team like this now in Vegas, that's so far away that, can we say that in this day and age, the way that they're going about it, is it easier or harder to attempt that? Therefore, are they going to be better or worse than, say, back when we last had expansion? Is it easier for them or harder?
Oh, it's definitely harder. The reason I say that is because this is the first time expansion has happened in the salary cap era. And I think that when you see a great player like a Mathot being used as hockey capital and not going to Vegas and being one of the stalwarts and just having to build with a guy like Mathot, you're seeing him being used in a different capacity, something that's very unusual to all of us. We've never seen this before as just players being used as hockey capital. It's unusual. It's foreign to us. And quite honestly, it's hard to build with that, I believe. I mean, I know that George McPhee, I know him well, played with him, and he's great at what he does. And hats off to the way that the whole expansion draft went. But now you have to build through the draft, and you start thinking about those simplistic things that you have to do. And as casual observers, as we are, we look at, well, what do they have to do to spend to the floor? The salary cap top is $75 million this year, and somewhere in between the floor and that cap, they have to fit in. So they're everybody's friend for a week where they can take on money, and then they're everybody's enemy now as July 1 comes in, and they're trying to sign free agents like everybody else. So it's a bit of a bit of chaos, a little bit more than predictability. So, I mean, who's going to be in front of Marc-Andre Fleury? And they drafted 13 defensemen. You knew that 3 or 4 were going to go. But it's very unusual to give up on a guy like Mathot, who we just saw play a fantastic playoff.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about the salary cap world, because you're absolutely right. Because you look back at your career with the Panthers, and if you kind of parlay that and talking about the Golden Knights, you led a Panther team to a Stanley Cup final 3 or 4 years into expansion. I don't think we're going to be seeing that same scenario in Las Vegas that fast, are we?
No, I think it's going to be hard to. I don't want to say don't. I mean, Fleury seems to have had some magic, especially last season where he was able to help, Pittsburgh beat Washington, which was, he played as well as any goalie in a series I've seen in a long time. And that's after having suffered through some pretty tough playoffs. So that's left to be determined. But I think that they're set, and what they're telling everybody on their identity where we started is they're going to build through the draft. And I hear every general manager say the same thing. We have to build through the draft. However, then you see Montreal go out and sign a big-time player, make a trade. We see a blockbuster trade last year with Subban and Weber. So there's still a few moves out there for teams to go for the immediacy of getting there, and you could see the way that it played out in Nashville and all that. So I guess the Subban trade worked out in the immediate, but more so I think that teams have to build through the draft. So I equal what you said at the beginning by saying it's going to take, a longer period of time.
Timely news, too, John, with the announcement of the 2017 class going into the Hall of Fame, with the headliners being Teemu Selanne, Dave Andreychuk, Paul Kariya, Mark Recchi. You didn't get a chance to play against Teemu too much because he was more of a Western Conference guy, but maybe a comment on like a Mark Recchi or a Dave Andreychuk, a guy that you've probably had a lot of battles with considering how big this body was in front of you, and some of the marks of a great career by these gentlemen.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, congrats to those guys, and it's well deserved. I only played with Mark. Recchi and I played together in Philly for a short period of time, and Mark was always known for having a great engine. His engine was always on, and I was listening this morning a little bit to NHL radio about his last lap, which was a victory with the Boston Bruins, and one thing that he still had was those boots. He could fly, and I think that that's what I remember him for, is that special speed that he had. And he, as a goalie, you start to know their tendency. So he always had a great slip shot where he slipped it to underneath the blocker, and that's something I always look for. But with Andreychuk, it was a little bit more of a, he was stick heavy. Great on draws, great at getting to the net and tipping pucks. He was probably one of the best guys at the art of tipping pucks. He's not going to beat you with his speed. He was a big guy. I played against him my whole career because he played for Oshawa. I played in the Sioux. And he was a great battler, too, and a good teammate, just an overall great guy. And you know, when he went to Tampa, again, as you mentioned, expansion, you know, got them moving in the right direction. And I think that it goes without saying what Solani and Korea, I don't know if you could say Solani and Korea without saying one or the other, but Timo was, you know, what he did, obviously, in his rookie season was amazing, and then after that, it just seemed to get better. And you know, his winning the Cup with Anaheim and that, and just special stuff surrounding him, and Korea too. You know, like Paul, as a player, was probably one of the best guys at one-timing a puck, and the first guy. Here's a tidbit for you that I saw, and as a goalie, play with a one-piece stick, and where everybody was playing with two pieces, he brought out the one-piece stick, and I remember on a 5-on-3, whistled one over my shoulder, and it was so fast it got in and out of the net, and I just said, well, maybe it might be time to leave the game.
We're in conversation with John Van Beesbrook here on RawMikeRichards.com, and just like goalies, Beezer, you never really let go of certain goals, right? I mean, it's like
no, you don't.
It's
you
like
don't.
it happened yesterday. The great saves, the great saves were there. It's like I've talked to coaches. They go, yeah, the championships and the parades, the moments. It's the ones you lose. It's the ones you don't get. You go to the grave with. Absolutely. You know, and it's funny too. You know, when you get into discussions about halls of fame, and this is where I might differ from a lot of guys that are in the business or do what I do for a living. It almost sullies, you know, my thinking of these great players, and I'm talking about all halls of fame, John. That I know that we're in a stats world. I mean, my God, you look at what you have to do for a living in sports, where you talk about certain metrics and analytics. You talk about a lot of numbers, but to me, the Hall of Fame guys, it's always those intangibles. It's those qualities they have as human beings. It's those moments that you see, and I'd say probably the eyeball test. It's what you see that makes you think immediately that they're Hall of Famers. And those are the kinds of moments I remember. I can't give you stats. I'm not one of those guys. All I know is I look at certain players and I said, well, if you're going to use that argument, you know, then what looks like a Hall of Famer? Well, unless there's some sort of horrible injury or something catastrophic in the universe, I don't know how Connor McDavid, you know, looking at what I see, I don't know how he doesn't end up being in that category. It's still very early, but man, oh man, that thing's amazing.
Yeah, and you know, people are analyzing more by analytics. I mean, but hockey's never been baseball. It's never been football, and it's you know, it's honored some great people that haven't had great stats, and I applaud that. I mean, we've entered women into the equation. We've entered Russians and people from alike. I mean, contributors, builders. That's the great thing about hockey is I believe that they consider and honor everybody in different categories. I you know, the panel that selects them, you know, that they go over these things, and they don't really want to slight anybody that has had a consistent career. They don't really want to do that. It's just that every year it's tough selection for four or, you know, however many guys. And, you know, some are no-brainers. You know, when Marty Brodeur or Patrick Waugh comes up as goalies, they're no-brainers. When, you know, forwards come up that are leaving the game that, you know, retired, they're no-brainers. I mean, but then there's difficult ones because of Stanley Cup championships, and you know, the part with that you know, there's a lot of names on Stanley Cups that guys didn't contribute a lot and whatnot, and people can debate that back and forth, and it's so tough to win. But I mean, you know, when you have great contributions to the game, guys that have been MVPs on their team and have built the game and been good custodians to the game, I think that's a consideration. I believe that's what you're saying, and I agree with it.
John, thanks so much for joining us here today on RawMikeRichards.com. Really appreciate it. And I'll tell you this, if my dream comes true, where one day I live in Harbor Springs and have one of those huge boats, that I will come down and I will be the Muskegon Lumberjack himself. I will be the mascot. I will come down on my yacht and I will do this for you.
Yeah, and we will accept you.
Hey, John, thanks so much for today. A real pleasure.
All right, thanks. Have a great day.
That is the Beezer, as they call him, John Van Beesbrook.
Yes,
and,
a member of the United States Hockey Hall of Fame back in 2007. Multi-time All-Star, represented the United States in the World Cup, Canada Cup, Olympics, World Championships, World Junior Championships, Vezina Trophy, first-team All-Star, 800-plus career. I mean, this guy had a fantastic career with multiple NHL teams, and now he's currently the general manager of the Muskegon Lumberjacks of the United States Hockey League.
Well, I'm going to show you some young Irish kids who, if I need some muscle, it's definitely got to be. I need more than one, and so I've decided to go with these two. I saw a demo tape of Security, sent all the way from Ireland, and so if you need to know, and you're going to mess with me, if you mess with me, you're going to mess with these two.
Gary Donnelly, do you know you're a dirty shite. Last week you got stuck up on one of those trees, and I had to help you down. Help you down, I think.
And you went behind our backs. You threw a snail at my house. I put you to wheelie bin and I fucked you down the road. You wanker, yeah.
Fucked you down the road. Then, after that, my boy here every moment will flog you up and down the place.
I'm out here in the cold. Just to show you I'm not a bitch.
Just to show
I'm
you
in a tank top.
In a tank
Yeah,
top.
bastard.
And I swear,
Hey.
I swear, you'll be shining into a bucket for 2 weeks after I'm done with you. You dirty shining bucket. You pyramid bastard.
Your breakfast, lunch and dinner out through a fucking tube, I tell you, you innocent bastard.
I swear, you want to come into tower, you think you're the king of tower. You're the king of dog shite. That's what you're the king of. With these muscles, I'll box you. You stupid.
You're a rat-piling bastard, Jack.
Rat-piling bastard. You said you come down.
You're only a bagel. A French bagel.
You think you're mad, don't you? You think you're mad? Come down. You were stuck up a roof one day, and I didn't help you down. Because you're a waster. A fucking waster.
Okay, that's who you're gonna have to deal with, Dave. If you mess with me,
oh boy,
you'll have to, as the younger one said, take a dump in a bucket for for 2 weeks, you bastard.
What?
We just become best friends?
Yup.